Let me first apologize for not appearing on camera. I'm on the tail end of a really bad chest cold and I don't exactly look my best. I had originally planned to do a video on Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter. However, something else has just come up that demands my undivided and immediate attention. And of course, it's the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v Wade. Now, for those of you who don't know, Roe v Wade was the landmark decision by the United States Supreme Court making abortion legal in the United States. A leaked document outlining the court's initial decision was made public yesterday at Politico. And what was the government's response to the Supreme Court's nullifying and completely destroying the reproductive rights of women in the United States? To launch an investigation into the leaked document. Because that's what's important, right? Forget the right of women to have autonomy over their own body. Forget being able to decide whether you want to actually have a child and raise one in this unbelievably hellish world we live in. What's really important is punishing the whistleblower. It's not like this is a new concept in the United States. We've been doing this for years. When Edward Snowden blew the whistle on the immoral and disgusting tactics used by our government to spy on its own people, there was no investigation into the acts of our intelligence community. No, we launched an investigation against him so hard he's been forced to live in exile for almost a decade. When footage from inside a slaughterhouse showed the disgusting, cruel, and inhumane treatment of animals being processed, our response was not to regulate and punish those responsible. No, our response was to make it illegal to film inside a slaughterhouse. And how did we get to this sorry state? Well, we elected a black guy as president, which triggered huge swaths of Americans so bad that when his completely despicable and unlikable Secretary of State ran to succeed him, we instead elected this festering, pustulous anal wart on American history known as Donald J. Trump. He then proceeded to put three irreprehensible scumbags on our nation's highest court, one of whom was a member of a religious cult and another that was a mentally unstable alcoholic that has been accused of sexual assault. A man so unstable, he went from screaming and yelling like a psychotic Karen in a McDonald's to weeping and crying profusely, sometimes in the same sentence, during his confirmation hearing, all of which led to a conservative majority on our nation's highest court. But while the liberal in me would like to lay all of this on Trump's lap, I have to give credit where credit is due, even if it's bad credit, which is why I must call out my fellow Democrats. Multiple times since Roe v. Wade have Democrats had supermajority in both the House and the Senate, many of times which they also held the White House. So there's absolutely no reason why they should not have been able to make this a constitutional amendment, which would have been much harder to overturn. But honestly, none of this should be a surprise. America has a long, rich history of voting against its own self-interest, especially when women are involved. Women didn't get the right to vote until 1920, and up until the early 70s and early 80s, women were expected to be unpaid indentured house servants. Women were allowed to go to school, but they were still expected to basically be indentured service, meant to be nothing more than barefoot and pregnant. Now, I don't want to sound like some purple-haired land whale constantly screaming about the patriarchy, having an epileptic seizure every time somebody with a penis dares to challenge their worldview. The rights of women surely have come a long way since the 1920s, and today, women hold almost the exact same amount of rights and opportunities as men do in the Western world. However, there's still one area of their lives which they still have to fight tooth and nail for, and that, of course, is their reproductive rights. Now, I could sit here all day and try to play devil's advocate and claim that both sides are equally to blame for this miscarriage of justice, no pun intended, but that would be extremely disingenuous and just a flat-out lie. Conservative Republicans have been fighting against the rights of women in all aspects for decades, constantly fighting to block a woman's access to contraceptives, constantly fighting to block funding to programs like SNAP and paid daycare, and just any kind of assistance in general. On one hand, they want to force a woman to have a child she does not want to have, and on the other hand, they don't want to help her in raising of the child. I think George Carlin said it best when he said, "If you're preborn, you're fine. If you're preschool, you're fucked." Politicians don't care about you again until you reach military age. Then you're just what they're looking for. Politicians want live babies so they can grow up to be dead soldiers. Our government has a long history of turning its back on the wants and needs of people. Overwhelming majority want Medicare for all. The overwhelming majority of people want legalized marijuana. The overwhelming majority of people want cancellation of federal student loan debt. The overwhelming majority of people want stricter gun laws. The overwhelming majority of people want $15 an hour minimum wage. And of course, the overwhelming majority of people want legalized abortion. But absolutely none of those things have ever come to fruition. And why is that? Because conservative Republicans have have always put their loyalty to their party and their donors above the wants and well-beings of their constituents. People try to frame abortion as the murder of babies. I want to make this perfectly clear. A zygote is not a baby. It may have the potential for life, but it's not life. If you think it is, then you can also classify that crusty gym sock in your hamper as an abortion. You can also classify the shed lining of a woman's uterus once a month as an abortion. All of those things have the potential for life, but you don't see Ben Shapiro marching up and down with a sign that says, "Save the jizz." It's hypocrisy in its purest form. Some people try to claim that women wait until 8.5 months pregnant to get an abortion. Again, not only is that not true, it has never been legal. Abortions are allowed up to 12 weeks or the first trimester, and are only allowed after that in very specific cases, usually involving a threat to the mother's life. These people want to rave on and on about the government and other people trying to tell them how to live their lives, and they just want to be left alone. However, when somebody else dares to do something that goes against their own personal moral code, these hypocritical cocksuckers have absolutely no problem dictating what somebody else can and can't do about their own lives. Again, hypocrisy in its purest form. This is a disgusting and indefensible position, and it needs to be stopped immediately. At the very least, America needs to stop using the slogan, "Land of the free and home of the brave," because there's absolutely nothing free or brave about this. It's one thing and one thing only: religion forcing itself on people who don't want it. In conclusion, let me say this. I can guarantee you, if one of these justices had a family member who had been raped, or they had a little too much drink one night and got knocked up, I guarantee you they would be running to the nearest abortion clinic. American hypocrisy at its finest.